All right, so let's talk a little bit about the benefits of diversity and having diversity in our workforce. So we as an industry provide service to a vast group of people, and they represent all different types of diversity. It can be from age, gender, lifestyle, ethnic, cultural, different languages, all different types. And so what we can do is people feel more comfortable when they can associate or identify with someone there on staff, or as they're making their decision, if they can identify with someone within the marketing materials, then they'll feel like they will fit in better when they go and choose that specific hotel or that specific destination or restaurant. And so this kind of makes me think about summer 2018 when I was in Montreal, Canada. Now, because Montreal is French Canadian, French is the main language that is spoken. English is also spoken in Montreal, but primarily it's French. And so I remember the first time I sat down in a restaurant and I was presented with a menu. Thankfully, I could tap into a little bit of my French from high school. But I felt really uncomfortable and I just ordered something that I felt like I could pronounce. And luckily for me, I'm not a picky eater, so I love to explore and try new things. So it was actually kind of exciting to see what was going to come when I ordered something. But about the second or third time that I went to a restaurant, the server recognized that I did not speak any French. And so they presented me with an English version of the menu. And that when that happened, and I realized I could ask for an English menu, that server taught me how to ask that for that in French, which I don't remember anymore. But it just put me a little bit more at ease, and I was able to enjoy the experience a little bit better. As far as reducing costs as a benefit of diversity, we're talking about the cost to hire, recruit, and train employees. And so people, when they go to work, they want to feel like they're part of the team. They want to feel like they want to enjoy going to work. And so as a result, if they don't feel that way, or if they feel some kind of hostility, then they're going to leave. And it's going to cost us a lot of money to then recruit and hire and then retrain for that position. So if we can avoid that, then it will help us reduce those hiring costs. Along those same lines, it can help us increase our productivity because people generally like to go to work, and if they do like to go to work, then they're more productive. And so as managers, if we can help people realize that their work is valued, and that potentially their work could lead to advancement, then those people will definitely try to work harder, knowing that effort is going to be rewarded in the long run. Also, as far as productivity, and we talk about creativity and innovation, we've mentioned this thing called groupthink, where everyone in the group thinks alike and nobody is willing to offer different suggestions, at risk of rocking the boat. And so with this diverse group of people, we can have a different perspective. We can have a different ideas that are thrown out and ideas that are presented to maybe foster more of that continuous improvement. And so the last part is about improving our quality of our management. And it's important for us to have diversity at all levels of the organization, from the entry-level positions, because those are the people who are on the day-to-day. They're working with the guests directly. They may have some good ideas about ways that we can better serve the guests. And then as we move up into management, the middle management, we can look at the different processes, the way things are being done, and then we can move on all the way up to the general manager or the ownership. And so having a diverse group provides us to have a different perspective at each level and look at the things, look at the processes, the way we do business, a little bit more creatively, and then can again lead towards that more continuous improvement. Now we do have to be careful about making assumptions. So I had a student recently was telling me about a time when they were going through a training process, and they had a brand new manager, and about 98% of the workforce in this particular department were Hispanic. And so the manager just simply assumed that everyone in the group spoke Spanish. And so all the training videos that were presented were all 100% in Spanish. And then even the questions that the manager was asking the group were all in Spanish. And so the two team members that only spoke English really didn't get much out of those training sessions. And then also they left that training session feeling like their input wasn't appreciated or their input wasn't valued. Now, on the outside, I can see why a brand new manager walking into a place would kind of stress and demonstrate that they are sensitive to Spanish-speaking people, because that is important. But we also have to make sure that we're including everybody and making sure that all of our team members are feeling comfortable. So I want to share this quick example. It has nothing to do with hospitality, but this was a time from my previous work experience where I allowed prejudice and past experiences to create a barrier to being effective. And so a job that I had a long time ago was at Philmont Boy Scout Ranch in Cimarron, New Mexico. Northeastern New Mexico, absolutely beautiful. Well, at Cimarron and at Philmont Scout Ranch, there's two sides of the ranch. We have PTC, which is the Philmont Training Center where I worked. And then we have camping headquarters, which is where all the Boy Scouts will come and do their backpacking treks. And each trek is led by a ranger. Now, some of my experiences with rangers from Philmont were not so positive. And so I kind of developed this stereotype, this perception of rangers. So fast forward 2 years, and 2005, I'm working with a gentleman at this outdoor education center in East Texas when I taught 5th grade. And when he introduced himself, he said he was a ranger. He had been a ranger at Philmont the year before I worked there. And my immediate thought was, ew, he's a ranger. He's one of the guys from the other side of the street, right? And so immediately I was creating this barrier to not even realize or recognize that the ideas that he might contribute would be of value. And so it's important, about 2 or 3 days into my experience with this training at this outdoor ed center, we did a team building activity. And I remember the activity where all of a sudden I realized he was just a person. And the prejudice that I had, the stereotype and my past experiences of rangers made me realize that not all rangers are the same, and that he really does have some really cool ideas. And that year at that outdoor ed center was probably my most productive year, and actually was my favorite year, because I realized that I can't allow those past experiences to shape how I'm going to work with somebody else. And so think about a time or a coworker that you've had or have now, and think about how you can relate to that individual as a person, and not based on a stereotype or a past experience with people of that same gender, same age, same diverse, whatever section of diversity you want to think about. Sometimes we do create those stereotypes, or we use those past experiences to shape how we're going to deal with people in the future. And so we need to realize that those people are just people, and not necessarily going to behave in a specific way. Along the same lines of using this outdoor ed center where I taught 5th grade, we had different schools each week. They came up for 3 or 4 days at a time. And each year that I worked there for 4 years. And each year that I worked there, the principal would announce the schools that are coming. And some schools, people would be like, yes, this is awesome. Those are great kids. And then other schools, they'd be like, oh my gosh, those kids are so difficult to work with. And I realized as a teacher there that if I go in with the mentality of, oh my gosh, this is going to be a difficult group, guess what? They were a difficult group. I would start nitpicking at so many different little things that they were doing wrong. But then I realized they're just 5th graders. They're just kids. They're kids being kids. And so, same thing. I kind of use that in that past experience in the future to realize that every group of people is made up of individuals, and you can't just say, oh, because that group was bad from that school last time, that this group from the same school is going to be bad again this time. And so, I use that a lot when I am working with people, and that you have to realize that people are individuals, and yes, they may be part of a group, a subgroup of individuals, but it does not necessarily mean that they're going to all act the same.